fellow tech enthusiasts. Welcome to a day in the Senior Software Engineering Manager. Today is a bit different. I have got a rare opportunity to dive deep into some code and take you along for the ride. This is a real, no edits, raw, unfiltered look, a time lapse of the day in the tech world of a senior engineering manager. Every day starts with a ritual, right? For me, it's a cup of green magical potion, matcha. Is the fuel that gets my brain cells buzzing. With my matcha in hand, the first order of business is to prioritize the prioritization. So in the morning, I take about 15 minutes to plan my day, figure out what needs to be done. I set the top 3 tasks that will truly move the needle in the right direction. After I check the dashboards and different reports, ensuring that the service works as expected, basically taking the pulse of our services to ensure everything is running smoothly. I'm about keeping things running smoothly. Vibe here. With priority sets, it's time to dig into the code. Most of my day today is spent in the code, peering into the past, examining early code changes, and trying to understand the service inside out. To give you a little bit of more context, my team recently inherited this service, legacy service, and moving forward, we need to support it and scale it. Truth be told, we inherited, and from a quick glance, it has so much tech that hasn't been supported for quite some time, and we needed to bring it to a current state. And we are already having high priority projects and functionality requested for this service. So for me, before I can jump in understanding if that's feasible, what is being asked, the functionality, I need to understand what we currently have. It's basically, before you build a house, you need to know if the foundation that you have, if it's stable, if it can hold that walls that you will put there, or it will collapse on the first window that you put, or the windows will be crooked, right? Whatever it is. So for a little bit of time, it's like being a detective, piecing together the history of our code base. Um, it's honestly, you might be wondering why I'm not going to talk with the people who actually wrote this code. And to be honest, we don't have that luxury because the people who actually wrote this code are no longer around. And we need to figure out by ourselves. So, what I'm doing is all about getting a grasp of where we are and how we got here, understanding the intent behind the code, what changes were done, how we got there, and it's like peering into the DNA of this service, the new service that we are going to maintain. And by we, I mean my team is going to support it and actually scale it and build it into something that it's maintainable, sustainable, and works like a well-oiled machine. So throughout the day, I keep my trusty planner in front of me. It's my compass, reminding me what I prioritize. Because it's really easy to get distracted with everybody reaching out or everybody's priorities trying to become your priorities. And looking back and having this in front of me, I know what is the goal for today, what is the biggest priority, what will make the most impact. And if something comes up, I can slightly adjust if that's higher priority than what I have in front of me. So it's easy to get lost in code. This keeps me on track. Having this kind of, here's the focus for the day, here's what you need to do. By the way, can you guess what is my favorite color? If you said green, you got it. What gave it away? Then really trying to piece together this puzzle and build a picture and understand what it is. And then the meeting came. Currently, the situation or where we are, to provide you with the context, my team is all hands on deck. Like every single engineering team member that I have on the team is working on this project, a project where we are integrating with another a company which are serving as the middleware. We'll take our data and we'll send it to downstream service. So let's say this meeting was interesting. We have been preparing for this meeting over a year, trying to align everything, to gather the universe of needs and stuff like that. And a lot of times, the answers that we get, like we're trying to iron out the details, they are confusing at best, or most of the time contradictory. Like at the beginning of the meeting, you might get an answer yes to a question, and towards the end of the meeting, to the same question, just slightly rephrased, it will be a no. So you start to question your sanity, and it's like, did I hear that correctly? Or no? So to say that these meetings are interesting, it will be an understatement. To be honest, as the meeting was going, there were some request mates, or let's say ideas that this third party, let's call it, had and expected from us to do. And that didn't quite align with the best engineering practices that I'm enforcing in my team. So I am trying to explain why is this not a good reason. So if I were to kind of provide a little bit of context, basically the request was to over-engineer and engineer something, add functionality that practically will never be applicable for our business, because, well, every business kind of has a goal, and that goal cannot change, let's say, 180 degrees. So that's kind of, in this case, it was something as that was not feasible and it's not reasonable for our business, and will never happen. Like their ask was, oh, maybe you will have that in a year. It's like, it doesn't matter. We're not going to over-engineer, and we're not going to add any new technical debt or add code that will be harder to maintain and sustain, and also hard to kind of keep people clear on what is there, onboarding, and like all this tribal knowledge. It's a big no-no. Basically, sometimes you have to be the voice of reason, even when it feels like you are in a comedy sketch. I'm all about sustainable tech solutions here. As we are talking with this group of people, on the side, I also have a Slack conversation going on with a few of key people in this project from our side of the company, and something kind of nonsense is being said. We are talking, sharing memes or gifs and stuff like that, and trying to make a little bit of a light mood from the situation, trying to stay sane. So yeah, the meeting is going on for a little bit, and we go back and forth for why this is a good reason or not. And to be honest, the idea kind of this request came in because basically something that should be supported by the architecture of this integration is that we are the upstream. This company is the middleware or proxy, and then we have the downstream. So they, as the proxy, need to do certain things, and they're trying to give this their responsibility to be supported by the upstream, and that does not make sense. It's just not maintainable, and it's not actually good design. So trying to bring some reason, some explanation, and at the same time trying to say, it's like, oh my god, how even they can suggest something like that? It does not make sense. So as soon after the meeting is over, internally we hop on a call just to see if we understood the asks or understood where we are with this project, what else is needed, and kind of get some steam off, just talk it through and see what we can do and what is actually next step for us. So for a little bit, we're talking about what are our next steps, what we're going to do, and to be honest, why this is also kind of complicating and blowing my mind in this meeting is because we have about 4 days until our company is tech department is going into tech freeze for an extended period of time, and this last minute asks just add to the pressure, and especially when they're not reasonable. So we're talking it through, and at the same time, as you can see, I'm also multitasking. While I'm talking about one project on the side, I'm looking at another project, right? I'm trying to understand the code. I'm trying to continue with what I started in the morning and kind of build that picture of what this other service is doing, something that will be quickly and shortly onboarded to my team roadmap as soon as we are done with this other project that is in flight right now. So after that, all the alignments, all the kind of what's left, what are the risks, how can we ensure that we get everything done before the code freeze, just kind of alignment with our TPM, and ensuring that we are still on track on the core functionality. We are going to do the requirement, and anything that is nice to have can wait for another time or after our code freeze. So we are focusing on the most impactful and necessary changes, and not getting sidetracked with something that came last minute is not 100% necessary. So as you can see, I'm still kind of trying to piece together what is being asked. Are we on the same page? Trying to make sense of things. And I will tell you, don't multitask. It's so inefficient. It's just draining your energy so much faster. So I definitely recommend to not do that. However, so as I am about to wrap up this meeting, and I'm going to continue looking into the code, and from the perspective of the code, it's just another thing that is blowing my mind, how somebody is doing something, and at the same time I don't want to jump to conclusions. I try to understand what was happening at that time, and what was happening at that time is that, well, we are a startup, and when that code was written, we were scrappy, or we needed to get something really quickly out of the door, get it done and complete it with. So forget and move on to the next thing. And that's why the code is what it is, and we need to bring it to a better place. And as I was talking, I was so immersed into that conversation that about that project, and just the mind-blowing request that the company made, I forgot about the other meeting that I had. It was a meeting that I sat kind of the day before with a stakeholder of this new project to understand what is needed, like what is the functionality that is expected to be delivered as soon as possible. So it's kind of, okay, what kind of castle we want to build, like how many levels, like what, when and how, and stuff like that. So, and as we were talking, I realized that the stakeholder was mixing two things again, like what is minimum necessary functionality and nice to haves, and that will be amazing to do, and stuff like that. So trying to keep it real to, okay, what is the MVP? What do we want to start with? And then next we will focus on the next iteration and see what it needs to be done. So when I was done, I just got up, and when I checked the time, I was like, oh my God, I am hungry. I need to get something to eat. So really quickly went to the kitchen to put something to eat. And while that was cooking, I came back, started to continue looking at the code for a couple of seconds or a minute probably, and went back again to stir the pot and make sure that the food is not burning or something like that, and come back to the code because I cannot stay away from code for so long. All jokes aside, this is actually was a really pleasant day for me because I miss spending so much time with code, and to be fair, this is predictable day. As you can see, I got my food, and eating and spending time with code, trying to understand what the code is doing, how it got there, why something was done, who was doing it, and maybe there's an off chance that somebody's still around from the original people who wrote this microservice. Actually, it's not a microservice. I need to correct myself. I don't want to be lying here. It's a service a functionality that is part of a monolith, and immediately my thought is going, okay, what am I going to do, which direction I will be leading the team. As soon as we understand it, establish some good practices and kind of making sure that the major issues are fixed, we're going to extract it into a microservice. So that's kind of where it came from. And if you're wondering what I was eating there and what I have in my plate, it's quite something simple. It is cauliflower rice and with shrimp, with naan bread and some garbanzo or gorgonzola. I think it's gorgonzola cheese. And I always try to have some fruit after my food. I just like the way that I like to do, or I like to wrap up my meal. I am eating a cara apple. It's why I said apple. It's an orange, and it's one of my favorites. Which is your favorite? Do you have any favorite orange? So, anyhow, back to the topic. I'll sound like a broken record. I'm going through code, and as you can see on the side, I actually have my monitor split into two. On one side is the actual application, and on the other side I have the code, and the code itself is kind of split into two. I want to see it side by side and how things were changed. So the reason behind me having the screen split the way it is because I'm looking at the application and I'm trying to marry what I see in the application, the settings and configurations, and how that's the functionality or that those the fields, how are they represented in code and what they're doing. And to be honest, there are quite a few fields that I don't see them doing anything. And that got me curious, and I started to investigate further. So to my surprise, the service started with a lot more functionality than it currently has. And the reason is that it looks like some of the functionality was deprecated, was removed, but not 100%. So some of the features and functionality stayed behind. And by feature and functionality, I want to say some fields on the screen, which truly in reality is not functionality, is just a confusing data field. As I go through the code, because this is a service that is currently running, I am trying to kind of get through the call stack and understand from upstream to downstream how everything is working together. And by this time, my daughter got home from school, and we're hugging each other and just like glad to see her and super happy. What I'm trying to do here is that through the logs, I'm trying to, with the help of logs and stuff like that, I'm trying to see how the code and everything, how this service currently works, what it's doing, because I want to have a kind of a run book in the future to know how to troubleshoot something, which logs represent what, how to search for it, and things like that. So I'm already kind of building the base of understanding how to support this, and at the same time helping my future self in the future to know how to quickly research and how to quickly troubleshoot something. As I was going through this, I also was looking at some archived documents to see how we got there, because that's a good story. And it's time for dessert. So I'm eating an ice cream. And ice cream was not enough. I am burning a lot of energy just trying to put this mental map of the service. So I'm getting some sweets right now. I'm eating some organic gummy bears. They're quite good. I cannot stop at one pack, so I got two. Um, yeah, continuing with the same task that I started in the morning. That actually was my priority number one, as I mentioned. I started the morning with prioritizing a few top three things, and number one for me was to get a sense and understanding of the code base of the service, and that's what I'm doing. Throughout the day, I'm in constant communication with my team and stakeholders, answering questions, providing clarity, and ensuring we are on the same page. Communication is the glue that holds all of us together. It's essential for understanding the hierarchy of impact and delivering value. So I'm responding to different tickets, different questions through different Slack messages, and so on, and reviewing different short videos that were sent to describe a situation, trying to kind of solve that problem. And once that is done, I'm going back into something that I realized earlier, that quiet D makes sense based on the stack that I noticed, based on the logs that I've seen. Something D makes sense. So I started to dig into our reports and our logs and put something together and piece it together. So the realization that I'm getting to is that I'm noticing, for whatever reason, that we are duplicating some records. And like some records, we're duplicating the most important record, and that it is not something that we will like, because for every record, this is kind of how we determine how much we need to pay to somebody, to our partners, is based on how many records they send to us, and or how many of this leads they send to us. And because in this case we are duplicating them, we are paying way more than it should. And another quick visit from my daughter. So as I'm investigating, I see more proof that we are duplicating the records, and it does not make sense. So I'm gathering the proof to put the case together and share it with the people who actually configured everything, to get their input and understanding if that's actually what it is intended or not. Just again, because I am recently kind of being onboarded into this process. It's a service that I have not been supported. I'm not quite familiar with like end-to-end integration, or like how all the pieces, all the services work together. So I'm taking notes and reaching out to different people to ask questions and clarifications. And in the common project channel, I'm asking a question about this, what I discovered, if it was by design, and just getting the conversation started there. So tracing through different logs, the evolution of services, from its humble beginnings, it's like solving a history puzzle. Every piece, you need to figure out where it fits and how it fits. There's where you really get a sense of where we started and where we might be headed. It is like reading a service dialogue. The goal is to get a sense we can add, like if we can add functionality to it without actually breaking any existing functionality. We're basically morphing this service, extending it into something else. Originally, it was intended for one type of flow, and now we are envisioning a different flow. So after I spend time looking at the code itself, now I'm kind of looking at the bigger picture. I'm looking at the architecture of it, like of all the services, how they are interacting, how is the information flowing, what queries do we have, what services, like because we have, like, just to give you a little bit of a context, at the company where we work, we have data science, we have data engineering, we have engineering. And engineering department has many different services. Then we have machine learning and all of the stuff. And this all together need to work like a well-oiled machine, and you need to understand at what point something needs to be done and where are gaps, how that needs to be scaled, how that needs to be fortified to make it more maintainable, more scalable, and at the same time it to be reasonable. So that's kind of majority of what I'm doing, just trying to piece together the information. By this time, I actually am getting tired. My neck is kind of sore. And you probably noticed that I don't have the best posture. I actually probably need to work, not probable, but actually I need to work on my posture. Anyway, I am getting distracted. Later in the afternoon, I'm making sure everything is running like well-oiled machine. I'm checking the other services that my team currently is owning to ensure that everything is going well. Checking the logs and the dashboards to ensure our services are humming along smoothly. It's all about the peace of mind. We engineers love our data, right? You love it too. Tell me that I'm not the only one. Okay, so I'll go quiet for a little bit, let you enjoy a little bit of quiet time and peace. When I'm planning my day in the morning, I'm trying to allocate the type of tasks based on the effort and energy level that it requires and how I feel, right? So the most impactful and meaningful work and focused work, I try to schedule it towards the morning and do that work. And tasks like checking email, answering to emails, I try to have that towards the end of the day where my brain is a little bit already not as efficient or as clear as it is in the morning. Capture my findings into notes, writing the diagram, the architecture, the data flow, and stuff like that. So that's kind of where my planner is handy again. I don't use it only for planning and prioritization and seeing what is happening where, like the schedule for the day, but also to reflect on what went well, what didn't well, what do I want to do differently. And along that, also, I have a place where I take notes and draw diagrams and workflows and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I'm doing throughout the day and every day, trying to capture my findings. Because if you haven't heard that, our brain is not meant to hold information, it's meant to generate information. So always I'm trying to capture my thoughts, my findings, and the process of my thoughts and how I arrive to them on paper. That's something that I easily can go back to and refresh my memory if it's needed. Have you ever wondered what a day in the life of a software engineering manager look like? Unfiltered, raw as it is. Here it is. That's my day. It's basically a hyper lapse, a time lapse of my workday from the moment I started until the end of the day. So about 30 minutes of a time lapse that represent an 8-hour workday that concluded with code, with PR reviews, with communications, with meetings, with coordination, with integration, status updates, and overall making sure that the services and everything the business is running smoothly as ever. I still enjoyed and cherished every minute that I spent in the code today. So I am looking forward to more days like where I can spend time to piece stuff together, to architect it, and see how we got to it, the past, the present, and where this might lead us, where it might go in the future. And there you have it, a day in the life of a senior software engineering manager. It's not always about writing code. Sometimes it's you have a chance to even open and look at the code for a minute. Sometimes you might be diving deep for an entire day into the code. It's about diving, in this case, for me, it was about diving into the past, tackling the present, and preparing for the future. Thanks for joining me on this unedited journey through a day in the life of a software engineering manager. If you're enjoying this glimpse in the daily grind, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Until next time, happy coding, and may your matcha always be strong.